Hello, all, and welcome to today's podcast.
I am your host, Noe Magana. As always, I invite you to follow my blog at noemagana.wordpress.com for the latest articles on homeschooling. Today, I will be talking about how my fiance and I came to the decision, or should I say how she convinced me that homeschooling was the best option for kindergarten. After more than a year of discussions between my fiance and I, we decided to homeschool her. The idea was introduced by my fiance because she was worried about many aspects of the traditional schools. Her first concern was academics. As most parents do, if not all, we believe that our daughter is very intelligent and was ahead of what other 5-year-olds were going to learn in school. Since her birth, we interacted with her constantly, teaching her colors, numbers, and any other things that came up on our grocery store trip. We constantly asked her questions as to find numbers, what colors she saw, or whatever came to mind. Now that I'm talking about it, I understand why she always asks so many questions. A lot of the questions have to do with meaning of words, and she forces me to think about it for a minute or two before I can give her a definition. I recall one time she asked me what jealous means. Simple concept we are all familiar with, but it's harder to put into words. It made me realize sometimes we learn the meaning of words by watching television or by seeing it in action, but we never really attempt to put it into words until your kids ask about it, of course. And just yesterday, when I got home from school, one of her questions was, and out of nowhere, it just came out, when will the world end? So, sometimes kids make you think about stuff that normally you wouldn't. But anyways, when it came time to enroll her in preschool, we visited a few schools, and when we decided on one, it turned out that the fee we originally paid was per month instead of semester. It was something that we could not afford, so she ended up not attending preschool. Instead, we continued to use day-to-day activities as education opportunities. By the beginning of kindergarten, she knew numbers up to 20, colors, shapes, the alphabet, animals, and other things we practiced in books. Also in books is where we practiced her Spanish. And then I did say that she knew the numbers up to 20, but she could also recognize some other higher numbers, but she was just very familiar with 0 through 20. One of her favorite things to do was to color. We lived in Roseville when she was about 2 years old and began to show interest in coloring. We began to buy her small wooden birdhouses, piggy banks, and other objects for her to paint instead of painting on paper. We figured it would keep her interest longer and it would be easier for her to paint. Around age 3, she began to draw almost daily. She mostly drew princesses since she and her mom are obsessed with Disney movies. We bought her a sketchbook, and ever since, she's just almost every day she draws pictures when she feels like she's bored of what other activity she's doing. And that usually keeps her entertained for at least 30 to an hour on average. My fiance's other concern was safety. If I remember correctly, when we first began to talk about homeschooling, it was when some shootings in schools had occurred or were recent. I believe those incidents triggered my fiance to really consider homeschooling. Besides shootings, she was also worried about her being bullied or picking up bad habits from other kids. I thought that she needed to experience how other kids act so that she understood that everybody is different, and that even though it would make our job harder as parents to teach her how to behave, at the end she would benefit. She would grasp a better understanding of how we wanted her to act around other people, just behavior in general. I also thought she would be less impressionable, and in her older years it would be less likely for her to fall to peer pressure if she had that socialization with other kids, even if they weren't behaving. One of the things that made the decision difficult was the belief that our daughter would be missing the social aspect of traditional school. It truly made my fiance sad to think that our decision would deprive our daughter of having friends she can grow up with. Like we did when we were in kindergarten and elementary school, my fiance made all the research about homeschooling and found out that the homeschools would provide funds for our daughter to attend dance and other classes. She also found out that there are several field trips homeschooled children can take, allow them to get the social part of the school while they learn. When my fiance first brought up the idea of homeschooling, I thought it was overreacting to the shootings that occurred in school. I knew that she was very impulsive and very protective of her daughter, sometimes too much, but I also understood why she was protective, because I thought she was overreacting to the recent events. I didn't think too much when she brought up the topic. As time went on, we began to discuss it more in depth. Little by little, she began to change my mind about it because she put a lot of work and thought into it and how it would be more beneficial for our daughter to be homeschooled. I think I was more open to the idea of homeschooling because it was only kindergarten, and if it didn't work out, I didn't think it was a big deal. She wouldn't be too behind if we decided that she needed to attend public school for first grade. It has been 3 months now that my daughter has been in kindergarten, and so far it looks like we've made the right choice. I say we because I was part of the choice making, but I do very little to nothing in my daughter's education. All the credit goes to my fiance, who has done an exceptional job thus far. Next week, I will summarize the first 3 months and what a typical week looks like for my daughter. Thank you for listening, and don't forget to follow noemagana.wordpress.com for the latest on homeschooling. Remember, always do your homework. Take care, listeners.